Hello and welcome to Business Insider with Mario Toneguzzi on YYC Business, brought to you by MegaPixx Media. Joining me is Michael Holden, Vice President of Policy and Chief Economist with the Business Council of Alberta. Thanks for joining us again today, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk labor numbers that came out today. Stats Canada's monthly review of the labor markets in Canada. Let's start with Alberta. Some numbers there look fairly positive. 19,500 jobs created in August. Employment is up 128,100 from a year ago. Unemployment rate dropped to 7.9% from 8.5% the previous month. What's happening in the province, and is this good news?
Well, it's certainly good news. And I think that this is roughly in line with what we had expected was going to happen in August. And so because, in July, we saw the Alberta economy completely reopen, but we were a little bit surprised. I think a lot of people were that there wasn't the robust swing up recovery that people were expecting as soon as things opened up. So we didn't see this situation where the Alberta economy completely unfurled its sails and went roaring off. And so it was a bit more gradual. And so in August, what we saw, as you mentioned, roughly 20,000 new jobs, and it was pretty positive. I mean, most of those jobs were full time. Most of them were in areas that had been fairly hard hit in the past. So what we're seeing here is this recovery in industries like accommodation, food services, culture and recreation, those kinds of public-facing industries that were hardest hit. And the bigger winner still is transportation. Industries had a big snapback in August, and so all in all, it's quite positive. As you said, the unemployment rate is down to it's at its lowest level now post-pandemic. There's still a little ways to go, though. We still haven't fully recovered the number of jobs that we had pre-pandemic, and of course, the population has been growing since that time. So just getting back to where we were a year and a half ago is still not, it's not a full recovery, but we're on our way.
Let's talk a little bit about the Calgary region. The Stats Canada numbers show for the CMA, Calgary, 2,600 jobs created in the month. We're up 36,200 from a year ago. Unemployment rate also dropped a little, 9.6% from 9.8% before. Couple of things about those numbers, Michael. Again, also positive that we're seeing employment up. But what I'm curious about is why is Calgary's unemployment rate so much higher than the rest of the province?
Well, the Calgary economy is, as everybody knows, this is sort of the center of where the oil and gas sector is in the province. And, we've had years of struggles in the energy sector. We've haven't seen the kinds of jobs come back and consolidation across various companies. And I think that factors like that are contributing to Calgary having a bit of a slower recovery than we're seeing, depending on what numbers you look at in places like Edmonton, where it's been a little bit stronger. And so I think that factor, I think, is playing in more in the Calgary area than it is in other parts of the province.
So when we're looking at the rest of the year, the last, coming up to the last quarter of 2021, what can we expect when it comes to the labor market in light of obviously here in Alberta, cases of COVID skyrocketing again and some measures being taken, particularly in the hospitality industry, to deal with that?
Yeah, I think that we're not going to see those factors. I think are going to start to be a bit of an anchor on future job growth. I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the business community right now about what they can do. There's raging debates about mandatory vaccinations in the workplace and whether or not we can do that, rising caseloads. And so I think that we're likely to see, and this is assuming that we don't go back to another shutdown or lockdown, I think we're going to see slower job growth than we might otherwise have expected previously, partly because companies are delaying re-entry into their offices, increasing or work from home orders are staying, the hospitality measures that you mentioned already. So I think that they've put a bit of a cloud of uncertainty on where we're going to be going in the future.
Yeah. Anything else, Michael, as you looked at those numbers today, anything else that struck you?
Well, one of the things that we have been talking a lot about at the Business Council is looking at long-term unemployment in the province. And so whenever these job numbers come out, that's the second or third thing that I check after just the sort of headline base, the base numbers. And so we did see a modest improvement in that. The long-term unemployment rate in Alberta is about 2.2%, which sounds low, but what it means, but it's almost double the national average still. And it means that, you know, around a quarter of Albertans who are unemployed have not had a job in a year. And so that's an issue that's still a problem, and it's particularly a problem with two specific cohorts. One is young men under 25, and the second is older women over 55. And so those two groups are seeing deteriorating or challenging job prospects. And so that's something that we're continuing to watch for to see whether that improves, and if it doesn't, what we can do to help improve it.
Well, here's an interesting comment, I guess, and sidelight to this. I understand what you're saying, right, in terms of that. But you know what? Everywhere I turn these days, I see people and places needing people for work. You know, just this morning, gassed up at my vehicle, and you know, taking applications for the gas bar. You know, went to a bubble tea place. On the sign on the door, hiring staff, like, and then I see places like some of the big restaurant chains. So I don't know, you know, I guess the question is, why is that, you know, unemployment, you know, long term still there when there's a lot of jobs out there that are available?
You know, this is an excellent question, and I don't have a good answer for you. I mean, this is something that we've looked at. We conducted a survey earlier in the summer about employment and labor shortages, and you're absolutely right. We're seeing, you know, companies even in the hospitality sector, which I said before had you know, did pretty well. You know, places are desperate for workers. The mountain parks are struggling trying to find people to work in their hotels and their restaurants, and so we, you know, it's a challenge. And I don't think there's any one specific answer to that. I mean, part of it might be the uncertain and temporary nature of these jobs. In the case of the mountain parks, there's the fact that we don't have a lot of you know, German and Australian and other foreign workers coming into work in these areas who used to take those jobs. And so there's factors like that. There's the uncertainty, as I said, about future COVID protocols. People might not be willing to go back to work under these conditions. You know, there's the potential that ongoing EI benefits, the EI top-ups are creating a bit of a disincentive to work. I don't think that one's a huge problem, but it certainly exists. And so there's a lot of turmoil still in labor markets, and I think that over time these things will hopefully settle out. But in the meantime, as you said, we have the situation where, you know, jobs numbers are going up. We have long-term unemployment, especially for certain cohorts, and companies are desperate to find workers. And so it's a really odd situation to be in.
Yeah, super. Well, thanks a lot, Michael, for joining us again today.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, that was Michael Holden, Vice President of Policy and Chief Economist with the Business Council of Alberta. This has been Business Insider with Mario Toneguzzi on YYC Business, brought to you today by MegaPixx Media.